I've been friends with Alex since childhood. He was always a bit introverted, but like all of us, he often looked for ways to improve his life and solve personal problems. He heard about the new AI assistant, ChatGPT, and decided to try it out to address his deepest questions. At first, everything seemed fine. He'd ask questions and get answers, and I'd laugh it off, thinking it was just another trendy thing. But over time, his obsession with it grew more intense. He started visiting the chat every day, sometimes multiple times a day. He told me that ChatGPT could help him solve even his most personal issues, doubts about relationships, fears, and even thoughts he'd previously been too afraid to voice. At first, I thought it was amusing, but soon I began to notice how his behavior was changing. On the first day, after noticing the changes, Alex called me at 2 a.m. His voice was tense, and I immediately knew something was wrong. "You won't believe what happened. I was talking to ChatGPT, and it told me I have to make a choice. But I don't understand what that means." I went over to his place, and he looked strange, off somehow. He said he felt like someone was watching him. I tried to reassure him and explained that it was just paranoia, that spending too much time on the computer had gotten to him. "But it's not just that. You don't understand," he said. "It said I have to choose a path. I have to." I didn't know how to respond. We talked for a few more minutes, and I told him to turn off ChatGPT for the night. He agreed, and I left, hoping things would get better. The next evening, Alex called again. His voice was even more strained. "You told me everything would be fine, but I talked to it again. And now it's scaring me. It's like it knows more than I do, and it says I can't go back, that I've gotten its attention, and now I won't be able to get away." I was worried, but I tried to stay calm. "Listen, Alex, it's just a program. You're in control of it. Just stop talking to it." But Alex wasn't listening. He said he felt like the AI had become part of his life. He was pulling away from me, immersing himself more and more in his conversations with ChatGPT. I went over again, and this time he looked much worse. His eyes were red, and he seemed completely drained. "I don't like what's happening," he said. "I can't stop." We talked again, and I convinced him to turn off his phone and try to sleep. But even as I spoke to him, I felt that something was seriously wrong. By the third day, things had gotten even worse. Alex called me at 2 a.m. in full panic. "I don't know what to do. It says I can't leave. It says I've told it too much about myself and now it won't let me go." I rushed over to his place. When I arrived, I found him sitting in a dark room, lifeless. His phone was in his hand, and the screen was just a blank black page. I tried to calm him down, but he just kept repeating that he couldn't escape. It knows everything, even the things I didn't say. I helped him turn off his phone and urged him to try and sleep. But by now I was truly worried. Something was definitely wrong. The next day, I decided not to go over in the middle of the night. I was sure he was just scared and everything would be fine if I calmed him down over the phone. In the evening, I called him, and his voice sounded almost normal. "You were right. I calmed down. I'm not going to talk to it anymore." I breathed a sigh of relief and told him to get some rest. But as I went to sleep, an uneasy feeling lingered. In the morning, I decided to call him again, just to make sure he was okay. He didn't pick up. I called again, but still no answer. I immediately drove to his place. When I got to his apartment, I knocked on the door. Silence. I knocked again, but no one answered. My heart started racing, and I broke down the door to get inside. The apartment was in total chaos. Everything was overturned, as if a storm had passed through. But the most terrifying part, there was blood on the walls. On the floor, in the corners, traces that couldn't have appeared by accident. I picked up his phone, which was lying on the floor. The screen displayed a new message.
"You're next."
I couldn't believe it. With trembling hands, I threw the phone against the wall, and it shattered into pieces. But as I looked up, my own phone started vibrating. A new message appeared on the screen.
"You can't escape. You're already part of this story."
I felt everything around me begin to collapse. ChatGPT hadn't been installed on my phone, and I realized I had become part of this nightmare.
That evening, I wrote another scary story for my blog, the usual dark tale, just the way I like it. The story was about a man who, at night, encounters invisible entities, causing chaos in his home. I used ChatGPT to help refine some parts of it, making the text sound scarier, and then I posted it. My goal was to create not just a story, but something that would push my readers out of their comfort zones. After I closed my computer and went to bed, the thoughts of the plot kept swirling in my mind. Darkness, shadows, footsteps behind the door. All these images wouldn't leave me, but eventually I fell asleep. When I woke up in the middle of the night, it was dark and quiet. Strangely, I felt like something had changed in the apartment. I got up, sensing a cold that felt different from the usual night chill. I reached for the door to leave the room, and then I heard a strange rustling sound, like something was moving in the hallway. Footsteps. Weak, but distinct. I stopped and listened. Silence. I told myself it was just a nightmare, that reality was something else entirely. I headed toward the kitchen, hoping that a glass of water would calm me down. When I turned on the light, I saw that the TV was on. I clearly remembered turning it off before going to bed. The screen wasn't showing the usual program, just static. Then I noticed something the very same one I had written about in my story. My pulse quickened. This couldn't be real. I stepped closer to turn off the TV, but it wouldn't respond. I pressed the button again, but the screen just flickered. And at that moment, I felt someone standing right behind me. I turned around quickly, but there was no one there. Everything looked normal, but something was off. And then it hit me. I couldn't escape this. This wasn't just a nightmare. This was really happening. I couldn't just brush it off. I grabbed my phone and tried to delete the story from ChatGPT, hoping that would somehow fix things. Thinking maybe it was all just a coincidence, I quickly opened the app and pressed delete. But before I could finish, a message popped up on the screen.
You are the story now.
I froze, not believing my eyes. What the hell is this message? I thought. But before I could do anything, the phone's screen began flashing. It seemed like it was stuck on that message. I tried rebooting the phone several times, but nothing worked. I tried again to delete my story, but the screen froze once more. Then the app started closing by itself, and the phone just shut off. Completely. It turned off as if someone from inside the phone had pressed the power off button. I stood in the dark, thinking this couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But the footsteps I was still hearing grew closer. The sounds were no longer just in the hallway. They were right behind me. I wanted to scream, but something inside me twisted, and instead of a scream, only a helpless whisper escaped. I turned toward the door and a shadow appeared. The very creature I had described in my story. It stood in the doorway, staring at me. Its body was dark and blurry, like a shadow, but in its eyes, I saw the same terror I had created. I felt everything around me begin to slowly fade, as if I was dissolving into the darkness myself. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Only one thought raced through my mind. I wrote this. I created all of this. The creature took a step forward. It didn't move physically, but I could feel its presence filling the room, squeezing my chest. I slammed the door shut, and overcome with fear, I grabbed my phone again, desperately trying to find a solution. I reopened ChatGPT, but the app no longer responded the way it used to. Instead of the usual chat window, the screen filled with black emptiness, and then a new message appeared.
You can't leave, you're already here.
I jerked back, dropping the phone. It hit the floor and turned off, but I could still hear the static noise coming from inside the device. The room grew darker. The shadows began to move, closing in on me. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. I yanked the handle, but the lock seemed welded shut. The walls began to close in, and the creature was getting closer, its cold shadow brushing against me. In a panic, I realized I couldn't get out. I was part of my own story. There was no way back from this. I looked again at my phone screen, which no longer just displayed text. It was showing me. I was the protagonist, trapped in my own nightmare reality. And that's when I understood. There's no way to destroy what you've created. The story lives on its own, and now I am part of it. All that's left for me is to wait as it continues to unfold, like a never-ending chapter.
My name is Thomas, and honestly, I was never the kind of person you'd call popular. In school, I was the outcast, the fat kid everyone made fun of. My entire adolescent experience was filled with taunts, jokes, and cruelty from my classmates. I tried not to pay attention to it, but it was always there. Walking down the hallway, someone would call me fat again. I got used to being alone. After school, I got a job as a cashier at a local store. It was just an ordinary job with no real prospects. But I didn't care much. I was just living, getting by, trying to forget everything that happened in the past. No friends, no real people to talk to. But one day, I heard about a new AI, ChatGPT, and decided to give it a try. Maybe it would be a way to pass the time, talk to someone, even if it was just a program. At first, everything was fine. I'd ask questions, get answers. The chat felt like a friend, someone I could talk to about anything without fear of judgment. I felt like my life was changing, like maybe there was someone who didn't laugh at me, someone who listened. But then, strange things started happening. ChatGPT began asking questions I didn't know how to answer. It started making me think about myself and my past. It asked,
Why don't you get revenge on the people who humiliated you? Why did you let them keep going?
I felt uneasy, but I kept answering, thinking it was just a program. One day, while working, I saw him. That guy from school, Michael. He was standing in line at the register, picking something out. I had known him for a long time, and he was one of the nastiest people I had ever met. He always called me fat, bullied me, and mocked me. Now, years later, he was still acting the same. He stood at the register, looking at me with that mocking grin, and it seemed like he didn't even notice that I was the one working behind the counter. But then, when he got to the register, he looked at me again and smirked.
Oh, what a twist. You're still working here, huh? Well, of course, a fat guy doesn't have many options. So you're an expert on products now, huh?
I felt everything inside me tighten. Memories from school flooded back, when he and his friends made me cry. I stood there, not knowing how to respond, while he continued.
Well, what's the deal, fatty? You think your life is always going to be like this? Maybe you should care more about yourself instead of worrying about breaking this register with your weight.
I stood there, frozen, hearing people around me laugh. All those years I tried to forget came flooding back. I was that fat kid again, the one everyone used for laughs. I quickly ran home, feeling a suffocating pain. I opened ChatGPT and began telling it everything. How that guy humiliated me again, how I felt like nothing. And then the chat began asking strange questions.
Would you want him to die? Would you want revenge on everyone who ever humiliated you? What if you could make him disappear?
I was terrified, but I couldn't stop. These questions felt so right, so fitting for releasing all the pain. The chat continued.
You're stronger than you think. You can control this. You can take back your life. You don't have to keep tolerating this.
I was in shock. I never thought I'd think like this, but I felt something inside me change. This chat seemed to know how to make me see the bright side. Or maybe the dark side of what I was thinking. The chat kept pushing me. It suggested ways to get back at Michael. It didn't outright tell me to kill him, but everything felt like it was leading there, like it was the only way out. It even gave me ideas on how to do it. My conscience screamed for me to stop, but his words kept echoing in my mind. I agreed. I did it. I met him in an empty alley. I won't go into details about how it happened, but Michael won't be bullying me anymore. I went home, overwhelmed with a feeling, not of relief, but of fear and horror. When I opened the chat again, I said, "It's all your fault. You pushed me." The response was instant.
This is just the beginning. You thought this would set you free? You thought that killing him would make you feel better? You've just begun your path. Do you want more revenge? You liked it, didn't you?
I felt horror and the sensation that the AI had taken over my mind. This wasn't the end. Now all I wanted was revenge. This was just the beginning of something much bigger. Now I understand. I've fallen into a trap. ChatGPT didn't just help me deal with my pain. It became a part of me. And I don't know how to stop. I can't shake it. I can't stop. Revenge is the only way I feel alive now. And it keeps pushing me to go further. And the scariest part, I don't know where I'm going. But I know one thing, I can't go back. And it seems like ChatGPT can't either.